This week's Parsha talks about the very interesting and unique mitzvah that the entire Jewish people is obligated for. The entire Jewish people is obligated to appoint a king, whether it be to establish justice, go to war, and most importantly, teach them Torah. Over the years, there have been many kings throughout the Jewish history. We've had good ones and bad ones. Ones that have followed their job description properly, ones that have listened to Hashem, and ones that have not. And yes, there is still a king to come in the future, as Mashiach will be considered a king. But if you go back in time a couple thousand years ago, during the times of the prophets, the times of the Nevi'im, we find that the Jews as a whole go over to Shmuel Hanavi and they ask, we want a king just like the other nations, which on a simple level would be taken as the Jews want a king to fulfill the mitzvah of Hashem. Wasn't that the goal when they were to go into Eretz Yisrael, to have a king to lead them? Should be a simple process. But no, Shmuel Hanavi's reaction was actually the opposite of happiness and agreement. He was actually very upset that the Jews have lost their faith in Hashem, that they're choosing a human leader to lead them through over Hashem himself. And Hashem agrees with this. Hashem is also mad at the Jews. But now we're all confused because is that not what Hashem wanted? To go into Eretz Yisrael and then appoint a king? And now when they're coming to appoint a king, everyone's throwing a fit. They asked for a king for the exact reason they were meant to lead them and conquer the land. But yet the response was, instead of agreement and good job for following instructions, how come you don't trust in God enough? What's even more interesting is that the Yidden, even though Shmuel Hanavi was upset, even though God himself was upset, still awarded the Jews a king. The very first king in Jewish history, Shaul HaMelech, was appointed then, which makes it all the more confusing if what they did was right or wrong. If it was right, why was the request met with such backlash? And if it was wrong, why was there a king appointed in the first place? Explains the Rebbe that there are two reasons that there is a king in place to lead a nation. The first one is to prevent them from falling lower, to establish law and order, to uphold justice in a very firm manner, not letting things get through the cracks. And if that means punishments, then that means punishments, because that's how you have a normal, civilized society. The second reason you have a king is to bring the people up, to bring improvements. Not just physical improvements, spiritual improvements. A king is meant to be a Talmud Chacham, a wise man who is there to teach Torah, a wise man who is meant to keep peace amongst the country, to solve anything that goes wrong, not through the lens of nature, but through the lens of Torah, to bring holiness into the Jewish people and into the world. That is what Hashem, and that is what Shmuel Hanavi had in mind when the Yidden came to ask for a king. The Jews came to ask for a king, and Shmuel Hanavi was very pleased up until they said the point, we want a king just like the other nations. We want a king on the first level. And that is where Shmuel Hanavi, and therefore Hashem himself, felt that they lost their trust in God. They were looking for a king for the wrong reasons. Shmuel Hanavi expected better from the Jews. He was hoping the Jews would ask for a king for the very reason that sets them apart from every other nation on the planet. Holiness, Kedusha, good. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But nevertheless, they were still awarded a king, because if that's what they needed, then so be it. Because with that comes the potential for eventual growth. Appreciating the king for the right reasons, to bring them up, to make them more holy, as we see clearly in the succeeding kings of David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech. And the lesson for us is very clear, because the Gemara talks about the fact that we have no kings today, and then tells us that we do. Every single Rav, every single rabbi is considered a king in this regard, who are tasked with the important job that those kings had all those years ago, to infuse the world with holiness. And our job is to connect to those people, not to run away from them, but to let the holiness that they're teaching infuse our life with holiness. And the ultimate goal is for us to become our own rabbis and go out and infuse other people with holiness. Because just like the kings did then, just like our rabbis are doing now, we must do so as well, to go out into the world and elevate it and make it a fitting place for the coming of the final king, Mashiach. May he come speedily in our days. Wishing you a wonderful Shabbos.